As a person who spent a lot of his life masking, I will tell you, you are who you are, and who you pretend to be adds friction to that. The more friction you bring into your daily true life, the more struggle you will have. That's what friction does. It increases the struggle. Hey guys, Corey here, AuDHD Act 2. Today is a big day for me. Right now there's a U-Haul driving back and forth between my family residence, my family home, currently in the middle of a divorce for those who have not been on my channel before. There's a U-Haul going back and forth between my family home and my soon-to-be ex-wife's new home. And that carries a lot of implications, a lot more than just her stuff being moved away. Obviously, she's going to be staying somewhere else very soon. And also, my kids will be staying somewhere else part-time very soon, a 50-50 split. And so there's a lot of bittersweet stuff going on right now. There's, with the space that will be allowed with her in a different house for both of us, honestly, probably. But the space that'll be there for me will, I think, allow me to finally start to recreate some routine, some kind of stability, or at least more stability. But at the same time, I'm also going to have to see new types of changes because of my kids and the change in their routine. And they're going to have some instability. They're going to have a little bit of, it's going to be a big change for them. And I'm also dealing with a mixed bag of emotions. You can't really go through any of this without kind of bouncing around like a pinball from a bit of sadness or anxiety or maybe excitedness or hope or into fear and just all of these different types of emotions are very closely tied, especially when you've been with someone. Our relationship was over 18 years and everything is tied to everything else because you have so many memories that, involve the two of you and your children and your family and all of the different things that kind of spiderweb out of these types of situations. And so I'm kind of in the middle of this kind of tug of war. I'm sure a lot of people who have been in similar situations have been in, have experienced this tug of war between I am excited and hopeful for what comes next because I will have so much more control. And I've kind of been talking to my kids about that because they're used to having a whole ton of stuff and they're still going to have a bunch of stuff, but I'm telling them when they come to my house to lean into minimalism and to because we're going to do some, not them, it's really going to be all me. I'm just like, it's going to be some routine. We're not going to stress about nothing. Tuesday's Taco Tuesday, things like that, simple, repetitive things. I love the idea, the concept that I can actually put in an order for like groceries and actually dial it in to have like an entire week's worth of groceries in one delivery, or not delivery, but one pickup order. And that whatever I miss, I can fix the next time because I will have that level of one person control over things and I won't have the chaos. And I'm that makes it sound like I'm like a, super, super obsessive compulsive or something or really particular. And I'm not. I just know a lot of times I could like watch a situation and be like, oh, I really wish that I could drive this on my own because I would do some things differently. And so I'm looking forward to doing those things. That was a long way to say I'm looking forward to doing those things differently. I'm looking forward to having the opportunity to control what's in my fridge, the opportunity to, decide what kind of lights I want, or the opportunity to decide what goes on the wall in the living room and just so many little things that don't bother me not having the control of now, but that if I'm being honest, like I'm looking forward to not having that friction anymore. I don't want to walk into, I like thrift stores. And if I see something in a thrift store, I don't want to be concerned that I can't get that because she won't let me hang that anymore. And so I'm looking forward to that change. I guess that kind of explains it. I'm looking forward to not having to to be checking in with anybody if they like the dimness of my light bulbs or something. So the next thing is boundaries. I don't have, and this is kind of a gray zone, to be honest with you. She still owns half the house, but like, there's still going to be interactions. We're still going to have to paint things. There's a tree that we're in the middle of trying to sell this house, and the largest tree on the property fell on top of our garden fence. And so now I've got a fence to repair and a tree to cut up. It's not even like an old dead pine. It's like super lush and there's tons of green braids. It's a mess. There was a windstorm the other day in Colorado and Wyoming and all along the Front Range. But anyhow, got that to clean up. And so there's going to be a lot of interaction. So my boundaries are primarily like an 80% improvement. That's kind of what's going through my head this morning. I think the initial impact of the divorce and the kind of the follow-on like resettling of all the sediment, all of that seems to be nearing some kind of level of like stasis. I don't like it's not as intense as it has been. There have been many moments where I've been like, I'll remember a thing. Or for example, last night I went with my son Keith, and I went to a show of Keith's friends at another high school, but they go to the same theater company. And we went to see his friend do a show of Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, I think is right. I think that's right. They did an amazing job. It was a great show. But I've also seen Keith in 2 other shows, and every one of them has like brought me to tears at some point during this show. So there are moments like that trigger other moments. There are going to be emotions. Not all of the emotions are going to be like sadness or anger or resentment, or like you hear a lot about that when you talk about divorce, but there's also a lot of kind of reminiscing. And I don't really place that in sadness. I place that more in like almost like imagining sadness. Like it's like when you reminisce, you tend to think about what might have been or what could have been or what you're losing that isn't really there anymore. And so there's some beneficial therapeutic aspects to it. And I don't want to say like minimize that, because I'm trying to do the opposite. I think it's very important, but I also think that it's just us processing the fact that what might have been, what could have been, all of those what ifs are not going to be. And we need to work through them, especially if you're like me. This isn't just something I do with the grieving. I will lay awake at night, not nearly as often as I used to be honest with you, but I will lay at night at times still and just be processing scenarios like if I'm nervous about a thing, I'll be like, what could happen? And just process and process. And that does seem to help. I do feel better prepared, but I just have that tendency, and I recognize that about myself. And it's part of how I process it's almost like if you've made a whole list of all of the possible things that could happen, and I have to go through and look at them all and be like, okay, I can deal with these things. And occasionally there's one that's overwhelming and totally unrealistic generally. And I feel like, and this is kind of an assumption I'm making based on talking to a handful of people and then, television and movie and pop culture. But I feel like for a lot of people, it's just the heavy what ifs, not just, but I think they get a lot more of the heavy what ifs that aren't realistic that hit them. Whereas I'm also checking off the mundane, boring what ifs. It doesn't really matter, but I will sit there and like weigh that for sometimes hours. And I would love to tell you that I only spend that kind of time doing that with the things that are important, but that is absolutely not true. I did a deep dive yesterday on my new phone. I did a deep dive on a new phone that I already had bought. And so I was already committed. And I just wanted to see what the difference was in the camera versus my old phone. And I spent probably a good 90 minutes looking at that for no good reason. Like I could have been out taking photos and being like, wow, that's a better looking photo, or wow, that's not as good. But no, I had to go look at the specs online. And that's the kind of thing, like I'm in that mode right now. I'm digging deep into all the things. And for the most part, I am getting to a place where they're all ending up in the same kind of final destination, I guess. They're all ending up saying, you're not meant to be in this relationship anymore. You have gained a lot from it. For example, my children and other things. I have a lot of wonderful experiences and memories, and I do hope that all of the dust settles from this more dramatic period and have those memories. And then I'm not trying to like scorched earth or burn bridges or anything. That's not me. It's not who I am. But I also have to recognize that I don't have control over how my relationships end up 100%. I can't just be nice and be giving, and you can't people please your way out of a bad relationship. And I realize that. And a lot of the roads that I keep finding myself going down mentally and exploring have to do with me realizing that I did all I could and that it didn't matter if it was perfect. It doesn't matter. I did what I could, and I have to accept that's enough. If that wasn't enough for her, then there's a compatibility issue, or a lot of other relationship communication, all sorts of things that could be blame. But in the end, it doesn't really matter if we're not compatible. And from one point of view or both points of view, if we're not compatible, we're not compatible. All it takes is one person deciding they don't want to be there, and there's no reason to beat yourself up. Again, telling myself this as I know I'm going to continue doing it because that's what I do. But I'm also going to keep telling myself to stop. And I have been, I'll be honest, a lot of the growth I've had in the last year or two has been in letting myself off the hook. And I think it's probably fair to say there's a lot of you out there that are in that same position where you need to realize that doing your best is plenty. But if you can look into your soul and and you know that you're trying your best, and that if it's not enough for a person still, you have to give yourself permission to consider that it may just not be in the cards. That relationship may it's just not meant to be. That may be the case. I can't decide that for you. You have to decide that. But what you can do is consider the possibility and relieve a little bit of the pressure, because it's not your fault if it's not a good fit. What You are who you are. And as a person who spent a lot of his life masking, I will tell you, you are who you are, and who you pretend to be adds friction to that. And the more friction you add to who you really are, the more friction you bring into your daily true life, the more struggle you will have. That's what friction does. It increases the struggle. So just be you, find things, even if you need to start over in many aspects, career, relationship, whatever, find things that actually feed you. Don't worry about what somebody else thinks or what the world or Instagram or YouTube or any of the other things think you should be. Just go be you, and keep an eye out for other people being them. And like just like the golden rule, try do unto others as you would have them do unto you. As long as you're doing that and you're treating people fairly in the way you would like to be treated, you should be just fine. But I'm going to cut it there. Thank you guys for riding along with me. Please like, subscribe, share all the things, and enjoy your day.